You place your trust in the wrong person, my wife. She laughed as she transferred our entire life savings. You're too gullible for this world, she mocked while packing her bags. I remained silent, just watching. 48 hours later, she was screaming outside my office when she finally realized what I had known all along. I never imagined I would be sharing this, but I need to get it off my chest. 3 days ago, I arrived home early from a business trip, only to find my wife of 8 years sitting at our kitchen table, her laptop open. She was laughing as she completed a bank transfer. Our financial accounts were displayed on the screen, or rather, what was left of them. They were practically empty. "What are you doing?" I asked, dropping my travel bag. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she smirked. But it wasn't the warm smile I had fallen in love with. It was something cold, something unfamiliar. "You trusted the wrong person," she said, turning the laptop toward me so I could see our savings balance. $0. All this time, you thought we were building something together. I stood there frozen as she went upstairs. I could hear her pulling out suitcases, opening drawers. My feet felt glued to the floor. When she returned, dragging 2 large suitcases behind her, I was still standing in the same spot. "Aren't you going to say anything? Beg me to stay? Ask where the money is?" She looked almost disappointed by my silence. "You're too naive for this world," she continued, checking her watch. "Always trusting everyone. Did you really think someone like me would stay with someone like you forever?" I said nothing. I just watched as she wheeled her suitcases toward the door. When I didn't react, she shrugged, grabbed her keys, and walked out. The moment the door closed, I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls. One to my attorney, one to the bank, and one to the police. Then I sat down and opened my own laptop. What my wife didn't know was that I had discovered her plan weeks ago. An email left open, messages with her lover discussing when to make their move, and property searches in another state. It was all there. I wasn't the naive fool she thought I was. I had been documenting everything. Quietly, I moved most of our assets into accounts she couldn't access, working with my attorney to safeguard what we had built. The money she transferred? A decoy account, just enough to make her believe she had taken everything, but not enough to harm me financially. 48 hours after she left, she showed up at my office, screaming. Security held her back as she realized what I had known all along. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain how we got here and what happened when she discovered she wasn't as clever as she thought. Edit. Thanks for all the support. Yes, I have backups of everything. No, I'm not planning to reconcile. This evidence is beyond damning. Update number 1. First, I appreciate all the supportive comments on my last post. I wasn't expecting it to gain this much attention. Some of you guessed parts of what happened, but the full story is even more twisted. Let me back up. About 2 months ago, I noticed my wife acting strangely. Always on her phone, taking calls in another room, staying late at work for events she had never mentioned before. Classic signs, right? But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Then, one day, I needed to use her laptop while mine was updating. She had left her email open. There, in plain sight, was a message from a real estate agent about a condo viewing in Florida. We live in Colorado. As I scrolled further, I found dozens of emails about property viewings, all involving someone named M. I didn't confront her. Instead, I started paying attention. I installed a voice-activated recorder in our living room, legal in my state, since I live there too. What I heard over the next few weeks made my blood run cold. "He's such an idiot," she said, her voice clear as day. "He actually believes I'm working late. 8 years of marriage, and he still trusts me completely." A man's voice responded, "How much longer until we have enough?" 2 more weeks. I've been moving it slowly, so he doesn't notice. The accounts will be empty by next Friday, and then we're free. Every night, when she thought I was asleep, she talked to him, planning their new life with our house fund, our retirement savings, everything we had built together. I went to my attorney immediately. We documented everything, created a paper trail, and I quietly moved the bulk of our assets into protected accounts. I left just enough in our joint accounts to make her believe she was getting everything. The day she made her move wasn't a surprise. I'd already been tipped off by my bank about suspicious account inquiries. I cut my business trip short specifically to catch her in the act. The $42,500 she transferred, a fraction of what she thought she was getting. The real savings, the retirement funds, the equity from our investment property. Secured weeks before. Now, for the latest update. She didn't realize anything was wrong until she tried to access the money she had stolen. Turns out her lover, her former co-worker, had his own plans. He withdrew $30,000 from their account on the same day and disappeared. Her frantic calls to him went unanswered. 2 days ago, she showed up at my office, screaming that I had somehow stolen her money, that I had reported her to the bank for fraud. Security had to escort her out as she yelled that I had tricked her. The police have now opened an investigation for attempted grand theft. The evidence is overwhelming. Recorded conversations planning the crime, email trails, bank records of her systematic transfers. Her text yesterday. I didn't mean it. It was a mistake. We can work this out. My response? I didn't bother sending one. My attorney says this is one of the clearest cases of financial fraud he has seen. Usually, people don't document their crimes as thoroughly, he told me. Tomorrow is our first court hearing. I've submitted all evidence, including the recordings of her planning everything. Her attorney has already reached out about a settlement, but I'm not interested. Some mutual friends have told me I should try to work things out, that marriages go through rough patches. A rough patch is forgetting an anniversary, not systematically planning to steal our life savings and run away with someone else. I'll update after the hearing tomorrow. I'm currently residing at my brother's home. He's been my pillar of strength through this entire ordeal. Some people have been inquiring if there were any warning signs beforehand. Reflecting on it now, there were subtle deceptions about financial matters, an abrupt curiosity about our monetary affairs when she had always been indifferent, and weekend work retreats mysteriously erased from our shared calendar. Update. The hearing took place yesterday and unfolded precisely as my attorney had foreseen. Apologies for the delay in providing an update. I've been processing everything. When I arrived at the courthouse, my wife was already there with her legal representative. Not the formidable lawyer she had always boasted about, but an evidently overburdened public defender who seemed eager to be anywhere else. My lawyer had prepared me extensively, but nothing could have readied me for the expression on my wife's face when our evidence was unveiled. The judge listened intently as my attorney meticulously laid out our case, the audio recordings of her orchestrating the fraud, bank statements detailing systematic transactions, and email exchanges between her and M outlining their scheme. My wife's demeanor shifted from confident to frantic as the recordings played, her very own words reverberating through the courtroom. He'll never figure it out. He's too trusting, too naive. By the time he realizes what happened, we'll be established in Florida. Her attorney attempted to contest the admissibility of the recordings, arguing that they were obtained without her consent. However, since Colorado is a one-party consent state, and I was residing home, they were entirely lawful. The most surreal moment occurred when her lawyer requested a brief recess. I observed as they engaged in a heated discussion in the hallway, my wife gesturing wildly while her attorney shook his head in exasperation. When they returned, her entire demeanor had transformed. The judge denied her petition to access any of our shared assets, pending the resolution of both the criminal investigation and our divorce proceedings. All accounts remained frozen, except for a minimal allowance for essential living expenses. After the hearing, she attempted to confront me in the parking lot. "You set me up," she shouted. "You knew all along and just let me walk into this trap." At last, I broke my silence. "No, you set yourself up. I simply ensured you couldn't drag me down with you." She started weeping, not the fabricated tears I had witnessed before, but authentic sobs. "What am I supposed to do now? He's gone. He took all the money, and I have no access to any accounts." "That sounds like a personal problem," I responded, getting into my car. The fallout has been swift. Authorities interrogated M's ex-wife yesterday, and it turns out my wife wasn't his first victim. He had executed the scheme multiple times, assisting women in draining their husbands' finances before vanishing with cash. Law enforcement is now pursuing him across 3 states. Meanwhile, my wife is residing with her sister, who phoned me this morning. Apparently, my wife spun a completely different narrative, claiming I was abusive, that she was fleeing from me, and that I somehow framed her. Her sister wasn't convinced. She arrived with designer luggage and a brand new watch, she remarked. That doesn't exactly scream abuse victim to me. An unforeseen twist came when my wife's parents contacted me. They had always treated me kindly, and I was apprehensive about their reaction. However, they had suspected something was amiss for months. "We raise her better than this," her father admitted, his voice breaking. "We're ashamed of what she attempted to do to you. As for me, I'm keeping busy with work. My employer has been accommodating, granting me flexible hours to handle legal proceedings. My brother's guest room has become my temporary sanctuary, and spending time with his kids has been a welcome distraction. For those wondering about M and the stolen money, my wife had siphoned $330,000 from our accounts before the final transfer. Investigators believe he has executed this con at least 3 times before, targeting women plotting to defraud their spouses, aiding in the theft, and then deceiving them in return. The detective handling the case labeled him as second-stage predator, specifically preying on individuals already engaging in fraud, making them reluctant to report his betrayal. I've begun therapy to process everything. 8 years of marriage, and I never truly knew the person I shared my life with. My therapist reassured me that grieving the relationship I thought I had, while simultaneously being enraged over betrayal, is completely natural. Final update to come after the divorce is finalized. For now, I'm concentrating on rebuilding my life, free from deceit. I've already started browsing for small homes near my brother's neighborhood. Something simple, something truly mine. Edit. Someone inquired about the voice recorder. It was a discreet device designed to resemble a phone charger. Legally permissible in my state, as long as one party in the conversation consents. Since it was my home, too, it was entirely lawful. Always verify your local laws before taking similar action. Final update. It's been precisely 6 months since my initial post, and as promised, here's the final update. The divorce was officially finalized last week. So here we are. The criminal case against my wife concluded with a plea bargain. She pled guilty to attempted fraud in exchange for a reduced sentence. 18 months of probation, mandatory financial counseling, and restitution payments. The judge was surprisingly lenient, since she didn't successfully escape with the money, though her record will permanently reflect a felony conviction. As for M, authorities apprehended him in Arizona, attempting to execute the same con on another woman. He is now facing multiple fraud charges across several states. My wife was subpoenaed to testify against him, which she did, albeit reluctantly. Justice has a way of unfolding in unexpected ways. The divorce proceedings were straightforward, given the overwhelming evidence. Her lawyer advised her not to contest anything. She departed with only her personal belongings and her car. The house, investments, and retirement funds remained in my possession. The judge specifically cited her demonstrated intent to commit fraud in his ruling. I've moved into my new home, a modest yet comfortable house near my brother's family. Nothing extravagant, but it's mine, and that sense of ownership is deeply fulfilling. My niece and nephew visit on weekends. We make homemade pizza and watch movies. These small joys have been my refuge. I unexpectedly ran into my ex-wife's sister at the grocery store last month. She informed me that my ex now resides in a studio apartment, working at an insurance firm. Significantly humbled by the ordeal, as part of her probation, she must make monthly restitution payments to me, which, so far, have arrived punctually. I donate the funds directly to a financial literacy nonprofit. It feels like a cleaner resolution that way. The strangest development came when I received a handwritten letter from my ex. No justifications, no pleas for reconciliation, just an apology that seemed sincere. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote, "but you deserve to know that I recognize my wrongdoing, and I'm sorry for betraying your trust." I chose not to reply. Some bridges are meant to remain burned. Her parents still check in occasionally. They even sent me a birthday card last month, which was an unexpected yet thoughtful gesture. "We still consider you family," They wrote, "We raised her better than what she became." As for me, life is moving forward. Work promoted me last month. Apparently, my resilience and professionalism throughout this ordeal made an impression. I've taken up rock climbing on weekends, something I always wanted to try but was previously dismissed as too dangerous. I'm casually dating, nothing serious yet, but it's refreshing to engage with new people without the specter of betrayal looming over me. The most significant transformation isn't external, though. I've learned to trust my instincts. That nagging feeling that something was off, I'll never dismiss it again. But I've also learned that one person's treachery doesn't mean everyone is deceitful. My brother, his family, even my ex's sister and parents, they all prove that some people are exactly who they appear to be. Someone recently asked if I regret installing that voice recorder. If I sometimes wish I had never uncovered the truth. Not for a second. The brief agony of discovering a betrayal is nothing compared to the slow, insidious poison of living a lie. For anyone facing a similar situation, document everything, trust your intuition, and remember, how you respond to betrayal says more about you than betrayal itself says about them. This will be my last update. Life moves forward, and finally, so am I.